De mare.
Welcome, family members from around the world. Welcome to Africa Week 2020. This is our September reunion, and September is African Heritage Month. We are here to honor, to celebrate, to reclaim, and step into the truth of all that is great, all that is Black, all that is bountiful and beautiful, and Mama Africa and of African ancestry. Today, we are welcoming back IDebate Rwanda and the fantastic brains involved in it and being nourished with it, and the brains behind it. Jean-Michel is back in the house. We have Rwanda here with us, dissecting a topic, an issue that we all need to be concerned with, specifically now. More so that it is African Heritage Month, we are here to discuss if Africans are ready to bring back the icons. So tag your friends, tag your people, share this video. Take a moment to share this video. Hashtag Africa Week 2020, hashtag Returns of the Icons Challenge, because the world needs to know that we are at the very least having this conversation and having it as fiercely as you're about to see right now. Please join me in welcoming and sending all the hugs, all the love, all the support and the salute for Jean-Michel and his fantastic team of brilliance here. Thank you. Jean-Michel.
All right, thank you, Dima, and we're very excited to be back. We had an event back in May, and we were debating about Pan-Africanism, and I think the discussion was very productive and exciting. And today, as you have said, we want to debate about whether or not we are ready for the return of the icons. I would like to begin by first talking a little bit about IDebate, and then I'll talk about the speakers for today. So IDebate is a debate program that is functioning in Rwanda and East Africa. And what we hope to do is to train young minds to become agents of change in their communities. What we believe is that we need a critical mass of critical thinkers who are going to be at the forefront fighting for our continent. And today I'm excited that we have two of those, two brilliant young minds. We have Loan Mniza. Right now, Loan has been in IDebate for long, I think 3-4 years. She is now starting her university at Weber State University, by the way, on a full ride scholarship, because they recruited her after seeing how awesome she is as a debater. And we have on the other side, we have Dani Karisa. Dani is one of our top debaters. You'll be hard for you to believe, I think Dani is probably 16 or 17. We usually call him Princess because he has a baby face. Sorry, I had to say it. But Dani, he's a fierce debater. He's still in his high school. He's still very young. and I'm sure that in a few years you'll be definitely heading for all the best places in the world. And we also have Ian. He has issues with his connection, but he's going to be joining. And Ian is also 17 years old. And Ian is one of our very good debaters. And he's a sharp kid with a bright future. And I'm excited that you get to see it for yourselves. And the format for today is going to be very simple. It's going to be very simple. We'll have Danny and Ian are going to take the affirmative, which says that answering the question of whether we are ready for the return. And they're going to be the affirmative. And Loan has decided that she's going to take both guys on by herself, and she's going to argue that we might not be ready for the returns, or I don't even know what she would say, but let's just wait and see. So the format is going to be each speaker is going to be speaking for at least 5 minutes, and then once they're done speaking, there'll be questions from the other side. And then after that, after each speaker has spoken, we have time for the audience to bring their arguments, bring your first and your best arguments forward so that we can have a true discussion here. And again, remember, all the positions that are being defended by both of these sides are just to spark a conversation. It's not about winning or losing, it's about sparking a conversation. So with all of that said, I'll give the floor to Dani, and Dani, take it over. And yeah, let's get started.
So we start. You will tell me to start my speech.
You can start now, I believe.
Apologies, everyone. So right here in Kigali, the electricity, we just lost power in the whole of the city. So Danny is trying to log back in, so he should be back within the next few seconds. Apologies.
In the meantime, could I maybe ask for Ian and Luan to share with us, until Dani comes back. I know Luan said you're starting. Congratulations on the scholarship and this very exciting new chapter and new stage of your life. What are you looking to study? What are you looking forward to the most? I just had a session on what's right with Africa, and yesterday we had one on what we see, where we see Africa coming at. Tell us what you're hoping for and what you're going to be studying. I'm very excited.
As Michelle said, I actually started this semester, so this fall, and I'm studying public relations and advertisement at Weaver. So a communications major, pretty much what I'm good at. And I'm just looking for. Honestly, I'm just looking forward to finish school with, learn as much as I can, get my degree, come back in my country, then do a lot more work because I plan on coming back right after I finish school. And so it's very exciting. I'm a little scared and nervous that I probably won't do things right, but,
I am very glad you said that. And Joey, if you're watching this, I just want you to realize how quickly your quote comes in handy. So what we have here is the wall of quotes from Africa Week 2020, things that resonate with us, things that we can hold on to. The quote that we just added 10 minutes ago is from Joey Zaza. Sometimes the best place to start is a mistake. So even if that is what you end up doing, it's a great starting place for you.
True.
Sorry,
Yeah.
and now you've proven my point with now I have to take back what I told Jean-Michel before we went live about not listening. But to be fair, I'm also preparing to launch another fantastic panel where everything is vibrating because it's the Bomba Revolution and it's like some brilliant women just radiating energy at me. So in my defense, I was a bit distracted. But I'm very excited for you. Congratulations on starting. I look forward to hearing back. Know that you have a platform here at Africa Week 2020. As you get what you're studying, share it with us. And maybe Ian now can tell us, although he hasn't started uni yet, right?
Well, I had some technical problems. But anyway, right now everything is fine.
Tech gremlins. The tech will not win. It will not win. Nope.
No, we're winning over.
Yes, we are.
Someone woke up with the moods of success today, so probably winning over.
Yes, we are. Tell us, Ian, what are you going to be studying? And fam, please, if you have questions for these brilliant minds, share it. There you go. Brian is saying, congratulations, Loan. Mejde Singh, congratulations, my sister.
So you're asking what I'll be studying in the university?
No, what are you going to be studying, Ian? Did you already start university?
No, I'm still in high school.
Okay, so what are you going to be studying? As you do that and tell the family, I'm just going to launch these sisters of, yes, no to the tech gremlins. Not here, not on the panel, not in Africa Week 2020. There is no space for tech gremlins. They will not get in the way. Look at this. Wait,
so what I'm planning.
Queens, wave at these wonderful people. Can you see them? Yes. Here we go. You are both going live. Well, we're live on this one. And yes, you're in high school. Tell us what you're going to study when you go to uni.
Actually, I'm planning to do both political science and international law. That's what I want to do, both at the same time.
Fam, if you heard that, he said political science and international law. If anyone has any questions about why we are Africa Rising, come at me. Let's have this discussion. Okay. Mejde, if you have a problem about my being loud, no one's asking you to stay in this space, my brother. You're welcome. Yeah, well, we need to be loud. I am here to ring the alarm. This is what I do. And we have Dani coming back, logging on. Let's stay tuned. Jean-Michel, maybe you can tell the family about your return and why you started, some of the success stories. Let me take Mejdi's comment out of the way here. Trying to tell me I sound loud. Would you want an alarm to be quiet for? This is my purpose. Don't mess with my purpose. My purpose is to be an alarm, and you will not tell me I am loud. You need to wake up. I am loud because the world needs to understand that this is the future and this is Africa rising. And if you have an issue with it, I think you spent too much time in Switzerland, brother. Yeah, you misspelled it. I'm super mega. My mic is super mega, right? I see you. I see you taking that back.
Yeah.
Women need to run
I'm back. I'm back.
Welcome back. We're ready to start.
Yeah, we're ready.
We're ready. We're ready. I will go backstage so that I'm not too loud. And I am very excited to what you're bringing here. Let's go. Return of the Icons Challenge.
So I will start. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. So our discussion today is a debate about whether or not we are ready, if these art crusts that belong to us, Africa, are for us or for any other person. So as you know, we've been in such days of a pandemic where people have not. Where we've seen some countries colonize Africa, and then they've been taking some of our icons to their countries, put them in their museums, which is something that has been benefiting only these people in these other countries, not these countries in Africa, ladies and gentlemen. So me from the affirmative case, I'm with Ian, and basically we're here to show you whether we're here to show you the fact that we are very ready as Africa to receive back all these icons and antiquities that were taken from us in the years of back then, ladies and gentlemen. So some of these antiquities were taken during what they used to call legitimate trade and exchange. Some of them were also taken in during theft, and some of them were also taken during colonization, which means they took them unwillingly. So basically, Team Affirmative, we are going to be proving to you on how we need this, and then we want this to come back to our countries, since it's going to be benefiting us, the Africans, ladies and gentlemen. So Ghana's Year of Return program in 2019 shows how critical heritage tourism can be an African economic increase, attracting more than 1 million diaspora visits, generating $1.8 billion in addition to the spending, ladies and gentlemen. So tourism, is one of the best sectors that is highly benefiting a lot of countries in Africa, which means it's very easy for us to earn some money. It's very easy for us, for African countries, to develop, be economically stable through having these museums containing all the icons they used to have in the past, and then people come visiting them, which is going to be increasing at least $1.8 billion, actually, which is a good thing. So basically, return of the icons will enable sharing of information, best practice, and the development of common advocacy, voice, and platform and actions. So actually, we're still students learning in different countries of Africa, which means we need some simple facts to help us study, to help us learn by looking at these things. So it's very easy, according to what psychologists say, it's very easy for a student to learn while looking at that thing that he's learning, which is very easy for that person to go for class, learn, and then get the basic education that person needs. So if we are able to have these icons back in Africa, if we are able to have them in front of us while learning, while living, it's a good thing that we are going to be also knowing our culture, having some knowledge about it, such that in any case, it will still unite us. I'll come on a fact that says about these icons, they are Africa's historical material culture heritage. So we have to learn to treasure culture and preserve them as an integral part of national development, reconciliation, and reconstruction. Basically, these icons reflect how in the past Africa was, which means we need to know how was Africa in the years back, and then how is it now for us to reflect and then reconcile. Rwanda had the 1994 genocide, which was not very easy for them, but it had to keep all things. When you visit some museums in Rwanda, you're able to look and realize some bones of the people who were dead, some tools that were used to kill these people, which is a good thing that we learners are able to go visit those museums and then learn on what happened, get some knowledge from it. So it's going to be very easy for us to learn. It's going to be very easy for us to keep our culture. It's going to be very easy for us to keep our knowledge we need if you're able to visit all museums and then find all icons in place that we need for us to be having them, ladies and gentlemen. So these icons are culture and human left to the continent at the period of great imbalance. So in the period of great imbalance, that was during the colonization, where these big countries had power on us, Africa. It was an imbalance where Africans had no word in the exchange of these goods, which means someone was given a miller, and then that person would give a big icon to these other big countries to be taken abroad, ladies and gentlemen. But basically, one of the point of clash is about the fact that these icons belong to Africa. They are for Africans, and what they used to call legitimate trade and exchange, of which they claim that they had to exchange something for another thing. That's how they acquired our icons and our artifacts. It's not I cannot call it legitimate, because someone being given a miller and someone being given something of something of big value, considering our culture, it's not legitimate, or it's not equal, because that was like blackmailing them, because they did not know what they were going to be given or what it would be in the future, since with the new generation needs such a thing for us to be developing, ladies and gentlemen. So these other countries claim the fact that for them to give us back all these icons, we need to have places of preservation and other things. But mind you, people, preservation is not the only answer to the question of what to do with this, with these icons or wealth of nature. Because basically, I have to tell you that some of these icons are meant to be buried, are meant to be put in the underground for us to be like. I'll come on the fact about intellectual items like human remains held in the Western museums. So these human remains are not kept in museums. It's not a good place to be. Like, you having a human remain kept in the museum, it's not a good thing. Actually, let's have them build bury them in the underground, as usually what we do, because it's the best thing that we can do to preserve these human remains, for us to also learn and get to know this thing. Basically, for us to have us having these icons back in Africa is going to be helping us learn. It's going to be helping us know our culture. It's going to be helping us preserve it, and it's going to be helping us reconcile in one way or the other. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll also talk about the fact that tourism and the heritage sector are growing importance to the economies in Africa, providing badly needed jobs for local people. Once these artifacts come back in Africa, people are going to be having jobs in the museums to work, which is going to be also developing our African economies, and it's going to be it's going to be of a great use, ladies and gentlemen. So Africans should determine the wealth and places of these collections. Not all antiquities need to be preserved and on display. They are living sources of knowledge, objects of worship, and expressions of life, which means these artifacts have more meaning than what they have in those countries like the United Kingdom. So the meaning they have in the United Kingdom is far more different from the meaning they have here in Africa, which is why we advocate for the fact that these artifacts, these icons should be brought back to our countries, which is Africa. So these other countries should not worry about the fact of asking us how we're going to preserve them, because it's not their problem. Since these icons belong to African countries, why should it matter to them regarding on the preservation or how they're going to be kept, what kind of museums they're going to be putting on, which is kind of it's not any of the problems that they should be looking at, ladies and gentlemen. So I have some of the examples of 10 museums in Africa, which includes House of Slaves, which is in Senegal, Egyptian Museum, Apartheid Museum, Nairobi Museum, Brupeni Museum, which is these are museums built at least in every country of Africa, which proves how at least every country in Africa has a good museum to have all welcome back all these icons to be kept there and be used, ladies and gentlemen. I'll talk about the fact of this apartheid museum in South Africa. South Africa had a crisis of apartheid, which was not good for their people, and it's their history. They have to live with it. So once these remains that were took from South Africa are back there, it's going to be very easy for even the young generation to acquire what they've been looking at, to acquire what they've been learning, to acquire what these old people are telling them that happened in their country. They're going to have this history. They're going to be able to have it in a good way. So there is this thing called the African Foundation for Development, AFOD, which is highly in process of looking forward for bringing these icons back to Africa. So there is also this foundation called Open Society Foundation, which has invested around 15,000 US dollars, which is going to be helping all these icons to come back in our country, in our countries, which is our Africa, for us to preserve them, have them, learn on how are they, and then what good use can they bring to Africa for us to have them. So Team Affirmative is basically looking about the fact that African icons were never a personal property, which makes it illegal for anyone who sold our artifacts for anything, because that's the African heritage. And if it's the African heritage, we need to preserve it in one way or the other for Africans to conserve and preserve everything that we have as Africans, since we are all looking for the best of Africa. So I look forward for any questions.
First question, how is it gonna work? How are you guys going to bring this back in case there's fragile or antiquities and all of that? How is it going to work?
Yeah, sure. So the debate today is not about the fact of how is it going to come back, because for information, in back days of colonization, we did not have these airplanes, we don't have these things like cars for them to be transporting them, but they use manpower to take them there. So if they use manpower to take them there, I don't think it's a big deal of bringing them back. But the debate today is not about how are they coming back, but the debate today is proving to you that we need these icons. The debate today is about proving to you that we need these icons and they belong to us. So if other countries are able to listen and accept the fact that they belong to us and they can bring them back, I believe every country is going to be bringing them back in one way or the other.
A quick question. There's this antiquities that will have been bought by people privately. Are you going to get
that's what I thought. That's what I said about. That's what I said about the fact that these things were bought by private people, but in exchange they used to give some things that were not like they were not equal to what we gave them. Like imagine me giving you a mirror and then I give you some icon of that belongs to our African religion. And it relates to a statement that I made that says about that African icons were never a personal priority. If it was a history of one king, if it was the throne of one king, there is no sense of you selling it, since that the throne of that king belongs to the whole region, belongs to the whole country of those people, unless everyone accept to it and then sold it. But we should bring them back, since it was never a personal property for them to sell them.
No, my question is, when they got to those countries in the Western, and they were sold to people personally, so not just being in a museum, are you guys going to bring that back too?
We're going to bring that too.
Okay, that's all the questions that I have. If there are no any more questions for the other side, I think it's my turn. Okay, so my name is Loan Miza, and I'm going to be on the negative side. And my first speech is going to be about the reasons why we are not ready. And my second speech is going to be about an alternative to what we could do instead. Okay, so first things first. the debate today, as the NEG, we are not here to debate whether the return of the icons is a good thing. Far from it. We're certainly not here to determine whether this antiquities belong to the Western countries or the African countries. Far from it. The point that we, the NEG, are trying to get across is that Africa is not ready for the return of these icons simply because the timing is not right. So the reason why, first things first, is the government's involvement. For these antiquities to return, before they got returned, like Danny said before, they were sold to the Western countries. And if they're sold to the Western countries, technically they belong to these Western countries. And because of that, there should be an involvement of the government so that there's legal and advocacy included, so that it belongs, it goes back to belonging to the Africans. So my first thing is that the government's involvement is just as low. According to the New African magazine, the principal barrier to the restitution of stolen African artifacts from UK collection is the legal restriction on national collections, preventing their return. The number of formal requests made for the return of objects is quite limited. Some institutions have had very few, if any, requests, and not all collections have fully catalogued the African artifacts they hold, meaning that this procedure that would require all of the nations included to put in efforts, both law and advocacy related, and so far not enough have done that. Secondly, the materials necessary for Africa to preserve and display these antiquities. Now I'm here talking about the technology and the materials necessary, not as a Western country, but as an African myself. These antiquities have been in the UK, France, Germany, many other countries for years. Yes, these antiquities have gone through different preservation procedures for them to still be intact. So do we Africans have that? And a Ghanaian author, Benjamin W. Kapeang's article, Ghana Vanishing Past, he says that these indigenous values held by our country sometimes prevent the destruction of cultural resources directly related to the history of individual groups. Unfortunately, these beliefs have little strength in the face of economic necessity and the increasingly pervasive impact of Western popular culture. So the article basically talks about how different Pan-African meetings were held to discuss the issue of different museums failing to preserve the antiquities that they have already in their country. Which brings me to answering the questions that I asked before. Do we Africans have that? We don't. Note now. For that to happen, we would spend millions of dollars. Which brings me to my third and last point, and most importantly, the reason why we are not ready. The economy is not at its best now, and the expenses that would require to have all of these antiquities back would leave us in a bad position, especially in these times of pandemic. It's no secret that these times of pandemic have led to a decline in economic growth, and not just in Africa, but all around the world. Because of that, spending over $10 million on returning these antiquities, according to allafrica.com, and that is just the money that would be spent on only one African country to return antiquities from only one country, the UK. It would certainly be an amount that would cost the African countries included, since it certainly would be wiser to spend it in the health sector and the citizens in general. So they talked about how we are going to preserve it, how we have different museums, but at the end of the day, just as the article by the Ghanaian says, that we are not ready, that we have a failure at keeping our own artifacts. So how are we going to keep hundreds of thousands of other artifacts that are in these Western countries and bring them back if we can't keep the ones that we have here correctly? So today's debate, I'm talking about how it's not about whether these antiquities are meant for us. It's not about whether these antiquities we need them, but it's more about the timing. It's more about that we are not ready now to get these antiquities back. Thank you so much.
Okay, so I
I have one question.
Mm.
Okay, so I'll first ask my question. We talked about Africa not being ready, and the reason behind is just the fact that it's not the right timing. When you talk about it's not the right timing, do you relate it to this pandemic, and then that's why you say it's not the right timing, or it's not the right timing just because we don't have those resources to do that by this time?
it's not the right timing because we don't have the resources, money included, pandemic included. So it's not the right time because of the reasons that I said before. Government included, the money, the preservation, all of that.
And my question was, when do you believe is the right time that the African countries will be ready to bring back that?
That will be my second speech.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon to everyone. Today we're debating about, as my first speaker said, that we're just more debating about how visible we believe that these icons should be actually brought back in Africa, not because of the factors that actually the current speaker was giving about, saying that not the right timing or the economic stress that actually these icons may bring to African economy in the process of bringing them back. As my current speaker said, most of these icons actually languishing in museum basements involved and unloved and displayed, which we believe as we're the affirmative that, like the question she asked us in the current speech, where she said that are we ready to actually do the process of bringing back these icons back to Africa? Where actually my first speaker also talked about it, saying that it's not about the money, it's not about the process itself. It's all about what the affirmative are debating about. It's all about we having them as the primary owners of these icons. So as in my speech, I actually talk about the facts and reasons, some arguments of why I believe we shouldn't make the debate more about the capabilities of African countries being able to bring them back. Because my African speaker said in the processes that were being taken to the Western countries, there was not that big economy that actually supported the processes. So I believe that if at all the African countries could come to a decision of why we believe we should have them in presence, where we talked about the fact, like the claim that the Ghanaian government was actually claiming last year in the program, where it said that it showed a lot of critical heritage in these articles that UK had, that they were claiming that this would have brought a lot of money into their economy. Where I bring again management saying it's not about still the money of the process to bring them back. I believe governments can, if at all it was, because we never advocated on a point saying that we should give out money or we should actually pay these governments for actually having kept these icons for us, because it's like paying for your own mother, because we are the primary owners, regardless of the point that still some was sold to personnels, to some different people in person, not as in the museums themselves. So I believe the framework will be just quite easy. We will first deal with government museums that actually have these icons to bring them back, then later deal with people that have them in person, more so that not most of them actually belong to these people. Some are in the museums themselves, as most of the articles show that regardless of them having them, they are not even actually displayed for the purpose they are meant to actually to do. They're just actually kept in investments, leaving them actually idleness in where they are. So ladies and gentlemen, bringing back the point that if they were in presence in African actually museums, this will help enable the sharing of information and best practice, and the development of common advocates' voices and platforms. Like my first speaker talked about, like most of we the young generation in Africa that actually learn about these icons just in theories and actually don't know them in person. We believe in their presence here in African countries, they will actually not only boost the economy, but also help us in actually passing on the great information that actually they presented in our own economy. As going back to the point again, where the Ghanaian government talked about showing us how the African economy will be actually gaining more out of them, since most of them, actually the ones in the UK, are generating more than $1.8 billion to the UK government. We believe this money, if it was converted in any African currency that actually owns the primary ownership of those icons, it will do more of a great effect into the economy, more than having them actually where they are in presence right now. And the first speaker on the opposition side, as what my first speaker had laid out, it's not about the capabilities of African countries bringing them back in presence. It's just more we advocating and saying that yes, they have them, and yes, maybe that may be a problem of bringing them back, but let's first actually accept the fact that they should actually be actually owned by the government, by the African governments themselves, to help actually preserve not only the culture but also the boost most of the tourism, most of the African tourism because most of the African tourism is based on actually such historical backgrounds and historical and this history of these icons that actually held in the Western countries. My precurrent speaker at the opposition side talked about the government being involved in the processes, and yes, we accept we can't bring them without the legal actually attendance of these African countries in the process themselves. So I believe leaving the point unanswered leaving the point that is unanswered what my first speaker asked the current speaker on the opposition side, that is it about the money, or it's about we believing that they are ours and should be brought back to our countries regardless of how they should be brought back, regardless of how they left in the first place. Thank you.
Okay, so my question is, are you talking about the importance of these icons, bring it back, or shouldn't you be showing how exactly Africa is ready to bring those icons back?
As I said in my precurrent speech, I said African countries, we believe, and why you're saying they're not yet ready is not because they're not actually ready, but it's just because they're not being given a chance to actually bring back these icons. Because I believe the government would put a lot and also invest a lot in bringing back its own heritage back into existence.
What proves that that investment is there to be put in bringing those idols back?
Pardon, please.
But you just say that the governments in Africa will bring funds and all this and investments, all that's necessary to bring this artifacts back. But what shows that they're actually going to do it, since I brought proof that, you know, we don't have the money, which shows that we actually have the money to do that.
So you're trying to ask me the money that will be used in the transportations, or the money that has to be paid to the governments that uphold these icons?
All of that, any investment, any fund that is included.
In my speech, I talked about the fact of I talked about a foundation called Open Society Foundation, which is investing around $15,000 in the process of bringing this.
Is it enough though?
For the meantime, it's enough because not every African country is looking forward to get all these icons back. It's a process, any country by country, and they believe for the process it's efficient.
Just as okay, I think I've had all of the questions that I had, so I'm going to my second speech. Then you just say not all African countries want to have this antiquities back, and that not all of the legal action have been done to have all of these antiquities back. I think which ties back to what I was saying in the first place. We're just not ready now, because not only African countries, just as I said before, not only just the countries from the West, but also African countries are not putting efforts, advocacy enough to bring all of these icons back. And I believe that unless the affirmative shows me how my points, how what I've stated could be remediated, how what I've stated could be changed and could be, you know, put into better, then I believe I would take this debate and now onto the alternative for bringing these antiquities back. Since we have, since these antiquities were ours in the first place, since these antiquities were from our continent in the first place, what I would think, what the alternative would be, we would set a time frame first. Let's say 10 years, and in those 10 years, what is going to happen is, first, make sure we have the rights to it. Let there be written arguments with Western countries that have our antiquities. This argument will, one, mention that we have the rights to those antiquities, and two, will also have a clear descriptions of where and what these antiquities are. What this is going to help is going to help the ambiguities of whether these antiquities were stolen, or if these antiquities were actually bought, or for whatever situation is going to be there. It would mean that we Africans have actually the rights to them, and we can do whatever we want with them. The second thing, time frame would be where, since we have the rights to those antiquities, since there was a written argument that shows that these antiquities are ours, we would have these antiquities being leased to this Western countries. It means because they have these antiquities that belongs to us in their museums, there will be a fee paid to our governments for having those for 10 years. And in this case, we will not only have the rights and the authority to do whatever we want with those antiquities, and two, we will have the funds necessary after that 10-year frame to actually get the technology, the funds, and whatever that's necessary, government included, government laws included, to repatriate these antiquities back in our countries. And so I believe that today, unless I'm proven how we actually have the funds, we actually have the means legally, financially, economically to bring these antiquities back, unless I am proven that all of this, the bringing back of these antiquities isn't going to be ambiguous, since like I asked before, the first speaker, asking them if this antiquities have been also sold to people privately, because it's going to be another issue having to go into people's homes, people's companies to get of those. At least I'm proven how that can be sold right now, and we could get those antiquities right now, and how my alternative isn't the best way to get our antiquities back. I believe I should take today's debate. Thank you very much.
So I have a question for you about me in my first speech I talked about the fact that the debate today is about whether or not we need this, and since they belong to us. So do you also believe they need, they do, we need them? Actually, we need them. You accept the fact that we need
First things first, I did not agree with what you say, because I say in my first speech that today's debate isn't about that. That today's debate is about if we are ready or not. And in that case, yes, I believe we need them, but that doesn't mean we are ready for them.
Okay. Yeah, no more questions.
I think this is the time where we can have questions from the audience and we answer them.
I don't know.
Thank you very much for these points that you raised, and bringing it from the different angles and points of research that you've brought to this circle. Thank you. Family, friends, wherever you're watching this from, if you have any questions, if you have any points or arguments to offer here, please do so in the comments. If you are interested in coming on stage to ask these questions, do let me know. We will put the link here and we can have a broader live debate here. Now, my question to you is, I'm very curious about the suggestion of leasing the antiquities until we are able to, I suppose, from that money, be able to get the funds to raise the requirements that we need, the trainings that we need to prepare the museums and to prepare the countries for the repatriation of these antiquities. Would you also be suggesting something in retrospect where all these years that they have had the antiquities would also be taken into consideration as far as payment or compensation?
That's definitely a good point. That's definitely a good way to go about getting, the funds that's necessary to bring all of these antiquities back. And again, it goes back, I think, to the willingness of these Western countries to actually allow us to have the rights to them. And from that point, if we have the rights to them, then I believe we could also ask for the money that they have had to them, for all of these years. So again, I think it goes back to the willingness of the Western countries to give the rights of those antiquities to us, and the advocacy and efforts that we will.
But then this discussion then doesn't
as Africans, both.
Sorry.
Huh?
No, sorry. There was a bit of a lag, so I thought you
I
paused. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, good. What
Yeah,
I
we
was
can, we can.
this then makes the debate about whether or not the Western countries are ready to return our antiquities or are willing to return our antiquities, and not whether or not we are ready. The question here is whether or not we are ready, and that question should have nothing to do with whether or not the Western country is willing. No?
Hmm?
Repeat the question again.
Right. So now Luan was saying it would depend on the willingness of the Western country to repatriate the antiquities. But the debate question here at hand is not whether or not the Western countries are willing or ready. It is whether we as Africans are ready to take it. So our preparedness should have nothing to do with the willingness of Western countries to repatriate.
Yeah, I was actually going to add on to that. I think it all goes back to the efforts and the efforts that we as Africans are putting in to get all this art antiquities back. So, like I said before, there's an article that I read that there isn't enough African countries claiming all of this antiquities, and because of that, well, because there's no effort put, well, we are not getting these antiquities back. And so I guess at the end of the day, it's the efforts that we as the Africans are putting in it's into.
So are you arguing that all African countries need to be all ready and all willing to move collectively for the return of their antiquities, for our antiquities to come back? Isn't it enough that if one country is prepared to do it, isn't that enough for us to then say, at least this group of Africans are ready to have it back? Or does it have to be all of us asking for it to be a valid request?
Well, looking at what's happening right now, it's like because there's a small number of African countries asking for these antiquities, well, what's actually happening? And so if this small number of African countries is asking for these antiquities back and nothing big is happening, well, why not try having a bigger number of African countries ask for this antiquities, and then maybe change will be made.
Actually, what I would say about that is I believe at least one country at a time asking for these antiquities to come back in their country is a good step, as not waiting for every African countries to go back and ask for it. Because I'll give an example. I'll give an example like France, which announced a symbolic return of 26 artworks, 26 artworks rooted in France, forces from Benin. So Benin asked these antiquities to go back to the country, and then the president of France, Macron, like he accepted the fact that these 26 artworks should go back to Benin. So it was a good step which was made by one country, and I believe if one country is making a step and it succeeds, it's going to be very easy for also other countries to come up with such a step to look up for their antiquities in different countries and then ask for them to come back.
And I also believe this was a really tricky move because, as the current speaker said, if at all a group of people are ready to and willing to have them back in presence, I don't believe, like Africa is, it's really a continent of almost 55 countries. I don't believe the readiness of just all the 55 countries will be there in one spot, and we're like, yeah, you know what? All 55 African countries are ready to have the antiquities back in presence or back in Africa. I just believe any country that is willing and ready financially, it should be given, it should be allowed to have actually its antiquities back in the country.
I mean, I'm not necessarily saying that we should wait until, we're all going to go and ask for antiquities, because if that's the case, I don't think we will wait for a very long time. But I think what I'm asking for is that there could be more African countries standing up and asking for the antiquities, because then it means it's more pressure on this Western countries, and it means that there's more people talking about it, and then we get to our goal of having our antiquities back.
Correct me if I'm wrong, if you are arguing that we would make a stronger case in our, and I think in many ways this connects back to the debate you came with for the inaugural Africa Week 2020 on whether or not Pan-Africanism is a myth or a dream or a reality. Is there a case to be made about us collectively coming together to make this case, to be able to say we will pool our resources as Africans or as African countries or as African scientists or as African archaeologists to prepare for that?
You mean as you mean like a group of African countries then giving a case that we want this back?
Yes. Are you saying we would have better chance, we would have a better case to raise for the return of the icons if more African countries are on the same page to demand it? Is that what you are arguing? Okay.
Definitely. But yeah, that there will be more pressure set on these countries giving us what we are asking for if there's more if there's more countries asking for them, if it makes sense.
It does. It makes perfect sense. We have Danny here trying to come back, though it would seem the internet, I have to go back to invoke that banner. Not today, Tech Gremlins. One of the cases that were made, because in announcing this debate yesterday, a friend and sister of the family was saying, even the argument of Africans not being ready to take care of their antiquities is insulting and unacceptable, because these antiquities were not made to be in a museum altogether. They were not created for them to be in a building or an institution of controlled, temperatures and curated care of that sort. They were made as something that we live around and interact with our surroundings. What argument would you give back to that?
So first, I would have a question first. Where are they going to be in that case? If they're not meant to be just in the museum, where are they going to be?
Like, actually, I think there's some of these antiquities which are meant to be buried, not just be put in museums, because according to different African traditions, they believe human remains should be put in the underground and buried. So which makes it a difference, because these other museums in other countries, they're just keeping them in just museums.
Okay, let's say that part goes to the in the ground and all of that. First things first, we already know that even that is an issue, because we're having we're having countries, ours included, I believe, where the land is being too small for the people in the country. So that would be a problem. And let's not even talk about that. Maybe let's say we have that group of antiquities that are going to lay in the ground, but what about all of the other antiquities? Because I don't believe it's just the antiquities that are going to go to the ground that are going to be brought back.
What I can
Okay,
say
what
on
I
that
believe is different antiquities from different. I was saying different antiquities from different cultures have their own beliefs on where they believe they should keep these antiquities. Basically, it would be more best if you go in specific, or how you guys willing, or how to keep it or preserve it in that place it will be, because like an antiquity from South Africa may not be having the same way, or they may not be actually be planned to keep, the people may not plan to keep it in the same way we Rwandans we could keep it. So that will require us to go in specifics to know what antiquities are we talking about here. Like what Danny was saying, that some cultures in Africa believe, like if there are skulls of the kings, if there are some bones of the kings that are remaining, if we go back to the myth of Ali Man, who's believed to have been in Africa in the first place, that will bring about another debate whether the place they believe he was from or the native origin of where they believe he's from. That means people will have to debate about how should we keep this antiquity. So that will bring about a whole long debate. It's basically pushing us to knowing how different beliefs, how different cultures are willing to actually keep the antiquity. So I believe if they're brought back in presence, we should respect the fact that those cultures want to keep them in the way they believe they should be kept, or in the way they believe they should be preserved, because that's respecting. That's part of respecting their culture.
And again, it goes back to what I was saying. I'm not saying that we shouldn't bring back all of these antiquities, far from it. I'm just saying that let's have more time. Let's think about all of this that I've mentioned before, and then let's bring it. Because I'm not just saying that we shouldn't bring it. Far from it. I believe all of these antiquities belong here because that's where they were from. So yeah.
Loan, let me maybe I'll give a simple scenario about Rwanda. Maybe I'm not sure if Rwanda has some antiquities in different other countries, but I've visited some of the museums in Rwanda, and you realize that some of these people are like making some art crafts. They're not like what they had before, but then they are like trying to duplicate them and like making them look like what it was before. Just because they don't have the original one, they try to make like something that looks like the original one. So, which is a fact about that if we are maybe able to get the original ones, it wouldn't force some countries in Africa to duplicate or maybe try to copy what they had and then put them in their museums. Maybe they would replace that with the actual one, and maybe that would create space for that.
So you're saying that we Africans duplicate what is in their museum, or they duplicate what's in our museum?
No, the point is like, you see, some museums don't have actually what the actual materials they had. Meaning they try to copy the picture of what they had and then make like during the art crafts, like some people do these art crafts, and then they try to maybe look at a picture of how it was and then try to make it during using different materials, and then they put them in the museum, in the museums, trying to show what they had. So maybe if these antiquities had to come back in Africa, it would be the original ones. We should also stop don't make those guys to like try to copy them and make some pictures of it.
We have someone from the audience here who is an archaeologist, and whose work I believe if this is a topic of interest for you and beyond the debate, this is someone you should absolutely follow the work of. But what she's saying is demand that both archaeologists and Western state agencies contribute financially to facilities for preservation, storage, and display. What do you think of that?
That's a good point. And I think it goes back, I mean, it's that, and also the fact that, when I say listing all of this antiquities that they have in their museums, both of them is a way to get the means financially to have these antiquities back. And which goes back to what I was saying. We definitely need to have these antiquities back, but it's not now because we don't have the means financially and so on to bring them back now.
Now
Actually, I also believe that's a good idea, because these countries are like, they have to compensate for us because they've been having these materials for a long time, and in their museums they've been making money out of it because people visit the museums, they pay money, which is the kind of way that they should compensate for us, because we also need the kind of money. So I think that's a good thing, because if they can compensate for what they've enjoyed with it, that means African countries are also going to be able to have these things back.
No, actually, Danny, talking about that point, it has actually given me a point. If we're also debating about Africans being ready, I believe these institutions and museums that actually are holding these activities, I don't know if it's harsh to say, but we should put out a penalty of them actually dealing with all the processes that will be required in the process of bringing them back in Africa. So that Loan's question is cleared about the financial problem, we're pressuring them to actually give us money because they had them in presence for all these years. We'll just say, guys, you know what? Just help us bring them back to Africa, and all is good. Then we shall catch it up from there.
Well, legal talking, we can't really do that right now because some of them are apparently were apparently sold to them, so they belong to them, and in that case, we probably don't have the authority right now to ask them, to give us the money because they've used it for so long. For
Don't
now.
you think don't you think the fact of these things being sold to private people is also not like correct? Because these things were not like it was not a personal property. Because maybe if it was for me, it would be very easy for me to sell it to anyone. But if it was an African heritage, maybe a throne of a king, that means it does not belong to anyone. So the person that you selling it is not like I don't think it's actually even like it was
And
not legal. Maybe they did that, but I believe bring that back, making like because I read some document talking about one ways to bring them back is building up a legal case, a legal case showing how some were stolen from these countries, and maybe in that way they would come back.
And again, like I said before, even when I was saying belong to them, I don't necessarily mean it belongs to them, and I don't necessarily mean that they got them the right way. Far from that, which is why we're asking for them to, be back. But again, I feel like it's complicated to have them say that it belongs to us right now because I think it's going to take long to actually show that it wasn't sold in the right way and this isn't actually private property and this doesn't actually belong to you and all of those. And because of that, it still doesn't belong to us and we still have a lot of work to do to make them belong to us and have them actually pay for whatever they've used them for.
No more rebuttals. Sis, you crushed them. You crushed them. Even though you know what? I have this. I'm between this debate. I have this debate with myself on a daily basis. I've been having this debate with myself since 2017, and it's great. It's very refreshing to see this conversation uh, take place right here. And so I pushed some questions back to Loan against some of the points that she's made, and now I have a question back to the team that's saying Africans are ready to bring back the icons. What are we going to do about bringing back those icons and then having Africans, having everyday citizens loot these antiquities, take them, destroy them, and sell them personally? Because this is a problem that we currently have right now. We have Africans who are being paid or paying younger Africans to go and dig the antiquities. Once they see where the archaeologists are working, they will go around that area and they will excavate without the right tools, without the right knowledge, without the right experience, obviously, of doing it, which in the process risks destroying the actual antiquity or the artifact. And then it is smuggled illegally, and there's the whole effort of to combat looting. But that's something that's very real. Like in 3 months, what 72 million worth of antiquities were smuggled out of one area in one country in the continent. 3 years ago, an entire dinosaur, the bones of an entire dinosaur were smuggled out of Morocco. How do we say we are ready if we have our own people who are actively looking to capitalize on these antiquities that we have under our own soil?
Actually, I believe that's the work of the government of these different countries to like put different measures. If they are claiming for these antiquities to come back, I believe they should also find a way to control their people in like I'll talk about the fact of protecting these such places where these antiquities are being kept, because it's one of the ways to prevent people going in those places and then destroy them. If you're going for a visit, maybe they should control them. Like governments should find one way to control their people for not for one ways of not destroying it. Like I'll give you an example. Like in Rwanda, we had these national parks where some animals were being killed by the people, claiming that maybe they want to eat, maybe they find something to eat. But actually, what I think is the governments being able to find an actual or a good solution on how to like have these people not destroying them is one way to cater for them in a good way. And another thing I think is about governments sharing this amount of money they get from these museums that contain these antiquities, sharing it within the people. That's how people realize that all these benefit them, and then they will be able to preserve them by their own willing.
Sure, but are the governments in the continent actually ready to do that is the question, because some, if not most, of the orchestrated looting that is taking place is done with the knowledge, if not support, of some of these governments. So, for example, of the looting that's happened in Morocco, they found that the chandeliers, the doors, some of the window frames of heritage sites, of ancient mosques, have been not just stolen, have been taken and reinstalled in some ministers' homes or government officials' beach houses and so on. So if the governments themselves are complicit in this process, how are we saying Africans are ready? If as Africans we are not valuing this heritage in a way that is, we are protective of it at this case, how can we make the case to say, yes, Africans are ready, but at the same time, Africans are ready to sell their heritage, even if it means destroying it in the process?
Actually, I think that comes back on the fact that not every country in Africa is looking up for having these antiquities back in their countries, because only a few countries maybe are looking are requesting for them to come back. And I don't believe if a government takes the first step to request for these antiquities to come back to their countries, they might have ways of maybe controlling them. But I think what the governments should, maybe people themselves are not yet ready, but the governments need them, because when we look at in an economic way, on how if they come back, the governments are going to be earning some amount of money to help their economy. It proves how how these governments need these antiquities to come back. Because if people I believe people maybe are not yet ready, since they are the ones destroying them right now. They are not ready, but the governments themselves, they have the need of them coming back to their country, just because they know the fact that once they are here in their countries, it's going to be benefiting them. And it's going to take some time for also the people to get the knowledge and acknowledge that the fact that if they are back, it's for the good of them, and for them protecting them is also for the better of the country, that since it still benefits them.
Yes, but my brother, don't you feel like this argument that is being made is that some African people don't believe the African governments are ready to actually benefit them, because they're not actually operating on the axis of serving African people, because it is them who allowed for these antiquities to continue to be smuggled. Because if you're not providing for your people, you are essentially forcing them in one way or another to tap into these things, because it is their only means to have any form of income, because they don't have money. If they have someone coming through and saying, listen, we will pay you a little bit of money if you go to this spot and dig and find something and bring it back to me. But if the government isn't providing, then the people are more inclined to go into this illicit trade. How do we as a people make sure that even when the antiquities come back, they will not end up in the houses or in the national palaces or, you know, the beach houses of government officials for African people, not the government?
Yeah, I also accept the fact that some people actually, we can't be so sure. Like we cannot be very sure about if they come back, maybe they're going to be going in their homes or where. I believe we are not ready. We're not ready about the fact of preserving them and controlling how we use them. But like everyone knows, if they come back, it's of a good importance. And us being ready, it's going to take some time for us to maybe generate the idea of accepting the fact that it shouldn't be put in your home, or maybe it shouldn't be put in any place besides the museum. But I believe people should come to a sense of agreeing to the fact that these things are to be put in a museum, benefit them in one way when they are kept and preserved in a good way. But the fact of people being not ready, yes, they are not ready, but then in some kind of time, maybe 1 or 2 years, they are going to be ready for it.
So what we're saying is we're not ready for it now, because if we need it for a year or two, we're not ready for it now. Oh, look at her stretch, that stretch of satisfaction, Lohan.
Hey, actually, Lawan's argument was like, we are not ready just because the timing is wrong. The timing was wrong.
We're not ready.
She talked about, you wait. She talked about the timing being wrong about the pandemic and not having money and ways of preservation. And what we, Team Affirmative, were looking for was like proving how we need that. And once it's here, it's going to be benefiting us. So we talked about like the fact that if these countries also contribute and maybe compensate for what they've been enjoying that belongs to us, that's going to be very easy, because her argument was good. Like it was like maybe we are not ready in the timing of the pandemic and us not having money, but also us proving on how we need it, and then it's a good use once it comes back. It was also a good thing.
Right. No, all the points raised are valid and good and important, and I'm hoping it is being heard, as these arguments are now, as I told you, being made beyond the hypothetical. These arguments are now being raised by various officials, by various organizations. We have Shayla Monroe here coming through again saying, what about transnational grassroots organizations that advocate for transparent tracking and storage of antiquities? Archaeologists and volunteers could contribute. Shayla, elaborate on this more for us. Better yet, please, if you are available, do connect on the link, hop on and share your expertise. Here is the link for those interested in joining. What I'm understanding is Lohan is saying we're not ready now, whether it's the pandemic or COVID or the finances or capacity building. What you're arguing is we are ready now, because if they pay for what they've already had it for, if they pay and compensate for what we would have benefited from if these antiquities had never actually left our soil, then we would be ready, because we would have developed these fields as something to allow for us to be prepared to look after them. Because this was the quote that was actually said by the sister who said, you know, it's offensive for them to say we can't look after history, is that she said we are really the greatest guardians of history, because in many ways we have passed on our legacies, whether through oral histories or beyond. And again, in saying and understanding that these things stayed under sand, they stayed underwater, they're however way they were, they remain to be an integral part of our heritage. And we have managed to keep track of them thus far, is what I'm understanding. There we go. Saying morning, Professor Shayla Monroe. What's good, my sister? Shayla, someone saying good morning, cross platforms here. Maybe click on the link and join us and tell us how we can engage archaeologists and professionals in the field for this effort, because I think both arguments are very, very valid here.
Yeah.
How do we bridge them? Since it's not about winning, as Jean-Michel said, it's not about winning, it's about looking at the different ways, the different points that are raised. Now that we understand that we're not ready because X, Y, and Z, but we're ready because X, Y, and Z, or 1, 2, 3. How do we bridge those and put forward a case
But
say...
before going to that, I believe even some people in these African countries have already accepted the fact that these countries took these antiquities and they cannot have them back. Like, some people already believe that maybe they no longer belong to us, or maybe they didn't look up for it for a big time for them to maybe have this need to have them back. So I believe the first thing that should be done is, as Africans, like, having that heart or having that spirit of we need this back in, we need this back in our countries. That's when everyone is going to work together and then be able to have this thing back.
What do you say to Brother Mustafa here? He's tuning in from Kenya, saying it's funny to say we are not ready to handle our own property. It's like taking a baby from the mother and the excuse of her not being ready.
I mean, that does happen. If a mother is not ready or doesn't have, what's needed to be a mother, custody is taken away from her child. Yeah, she's taken away from custody of her child. So,
Yeah, Mustafa, I don't know where you were going with that argument. That was the same excuse for not granting African country independence. The Africans, that's a whole other debate. Are we really trying to say that African countries are independent right now?
That's a big one.
Are not ready to handle power. That was the truth, though. Africans were not ready to handle power, because as soon as Africans got the power, Africans are abusing Africans.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
As a Nubian in Kenya, you are well aware of how Africans are abusing Africans, how Africans are wielding their power to subject Africans to oppression. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I'm on board with that argument, with that question, Mustafa. Justify it within the context of the antiquities. Because yes, a mother can sometimes not be adequately prepared to look after her child. If she is, for whatever reason, if post having that child, she slips into a form of depression, that doesn't allow her to be balanced enough to care for that child, and that child will have to be taken from her.
Exactly.
Or at least that's how it's happening. That's what's happening. So how do we bring this argument now from the case of antiquities? Because this heritage, these antiquities, these artifacts are our point of reference, our point of continuity to thousands and thousands and thousands of years. There is a deliberate effort to prove that our greatness has been discontinued, that these, whether it's the pyramids in Egypt or Sudan, or saying that they were not built by Africans, and to have the audacity for someone to say that the pyramids were built by white people, this kind of mentality. No, I'm not even joking. I've already played that clip. You know what? No, I'm going to play this clip just so you understand why the arguments you are making are so important. Because they really are. We do have people who are deliberately saying we are not ready. And you have other people who are saying that all these great civilizations are not ours, that we did not build them, that we did not contribute to this world. No, hold on. What are some of the interesting facts you found researching for this debate? What is something that you read that blew your mind as young Africans?
What I did read that I thought the proposition team was going to bring up is there's an article that was basically saying, well, all of these antiquities maybe aren't meant to be preserved for the long run. Maybe they're meant to, at some point, decay, and the only reason why we need them is as a point of reference for some time, and then we could talk. We could tell the story of it. And I thought the proposition was going to bring it upon because that makes sense. At some point, all of these antiquities aren't just made to stay somewhere, and like that, maybe it removes the power that they actually have of telling a certain story. And yeah, that's something that I read and stuck in my head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
What about you, Danny? Did something you read stick with you or shock you as you were
Yeah.
finding?
Yeah, some of the things, one thing that kind of shocked me was like when I was looking on some ways how these African antiquities can be brought back to Africa, like I like these about being bought legally, how governments are also included, just because like in the UK, in their constitution it says that nothing must be removed from their museums, which makes it very hard if we cannot take these antiquities from their museums just because it's against their law or maybe against their constitutions. That's also something that is going to be very hard for us to deal with it.
Okay. I guess agreement was saying, I don't see the link. Archaeologists have to report all their findings to the governments of the countries in which they work. What if we also report to grassroots organizations that digitally track the objects? We would then alert the media when things went missing within the country. What do you say to that? Wait, you're muted, Lawan.
So what she means is that in case all of this antiquities are trying to be stolen, we tell the media that they're missing.
What she's saying, because I made the argument that how are we saying Africans are ready, and that when we can't even trust African governments for not stealing these antiquities, if right now there are efforts or we have cases where antiquities have been taken, artifacts have been taken and been used or abused or whatever by the governments themselves. Her argument is saying, and she is speaking as an archaeologist, she knows that when they enter a team, when they enter for an excavation, once they're done, before they leave the country, they have to like submit a survey or a list of all the antiquities, all the findings to submit it to the government. She's saying the same list that we submit, we can give to grassroots or local organizations that they are also trackable, so then that's something that we don't have to worry. But do we have the capacity to do that? Are there organizations that do that? Is that something that you find feasible, or is this yet another reason we are not ready now?
I think it could be feasible, but again, I think it's going to be hard if the government is still against that. Because I believe that could work it could perfectly work in times where it's maybe part of the public that's trying to steal these antiquities and things. But if the government, is against that and is the one that is taking all of these antiquities and, using them inefficiently, then it's still going to be a hard thing to solve.
We have.
It's really a hard thing.
Oh
Yeah.
no, go ahead, Danny. Please tell me.
Yeah, about what Luan was talking about, the fact that the government officials being against that, it's actually very hard because we know people like when the government starts maybe the journey of punishing these people misusing them, maybe mispreserving them, that's when people are alert and know that when I do that, maybe I'm going to be punished for doing this. But if the government officials are also against it and they cannot abide to what they are, maybe what they was put there, it can't be even the citizens themselves, they cannot be in that journey of preserving them.
We have another comment here from Carol saying, indigenous people from the Americas have developed a movement that has worked in many ways to get their sacred objects returned to them. Can that be a model for African peoples? Carol, can you tell us more about this model and where we can find more information about it? I'm sure there can be a connection there. Oh, we have Brother Mustafa Mahmoud here backstage. I think he's coming to make his case in person after I pulled the Nubia Kenya connection. Welcome.
Yes, my point is somehow complex because we assume we had the right leaders, but the leaders that we chose were not the leaders that Africans chose. These were puppets that were well developed by the white man. So technically, we could still argue that we are not independent. For example, in Kenya, we can see we've been ruled by dynasties for ages. So these are people that were well trained by the white man. On the issue of are we ready? Let's look at Turkey. When they took back that Hagia Sophia, the whole world was claiming ownership of Hagia Sophia, but it belonged to the Turkish people. They chose to open it to the public. And they said, now the people that own it will protect it better because it's theirs. It's the same argument that I'm trying to make, that we can never be ready. You can never be ready enough. You can never be ready enough to handle your own problems. If you say, well, I think we're not ready, well, the excuses will never be ending. So I think, for example, who are the best people who protected the pyramids? Huh? It's the people that built it themselves. When you come and discover something that I built, it is the same theory of Africans' brains being inferior, that Africans can never develop can never discover anything. It is the same way that we had the Nile, but a white man came and discovered the Nile. We had the Lake Victoria, but a white man came and discovered Lake Victoria. So the problem is the moment you make a brain inferior, the same brain will think that it's inferior forever. There is no way you'll tell me that I cannot be able to preserve something that I am the one who was born looking at it, that I am the one who has been surviving on it for the whole of my life. Like, the best people to preserve Lake Victoria are the local fishermen, because they've been living with it. They've been part of the ecosystem. But if you still tell people that, you know what, Lake Victoria is full of water hyacinths, I think we lock you out of it until the water hyacinths are over. It is the same concept that you're using to say Africans are not ready to take back the artifacts, which basically it was ours. We are the ones who developed them. So we know how to care for them. They're always, like, you remember when we were talking about culturepreneurship, when you make the interest of culture and history into the people, they own it, they know that there's an income in it, they will take ownership. The problem is we put a lot of profits on something so that we make the poor not able to take them back. Because basically these things are ours. Because we put a very big price tag is the reason as to why people are able to say, if I steal this, I'll be able to make this money. But if you put the ownership in the community and say, you know what, the values of this thing is the value of the community. How much do you value this thing? We value it because it has our history. We value it because it has our heritage. Believe you me, even if it means me coming to take guard of it every single day, I will come and take guard of it. But if you don't value it, you will not take care of it. You'll be like, after all, it's the government. But if it comes back to the local people that the artifact originated from them, believe you me, they live and let a land and say, let it be placed here. Every month, there'll be a group of youth that will be taking care of it, and they'll be surviving in this and this way.
I mean, I would say it's a good idea, but I think idea. Reason why I'm saying that it's just a good idea is because what Dima said before. You're saying that we can take good care of it, no doubt, but facts are showing that we have issues protecting and taking care of what's already in our country. So what do we do about it? And the moment we don't have an alternative to how we're taking care of what's already in our continent, then that's why I'm saying we're just not ready now because we can't even take care of what we have already. If that makes sense.
I get your point. My point is, don't give it to the government. The government is the most corrupt system ever. Give it to the community. The government does not value anything. They value money. The next day, the UN, the UN will say that this is a property of the world. They'll say, okay, since we depend on the UN for funds, we can easily give out. But if you give it back to the people that it originated from, for example, let's say we take back the artifact and we say artifacts that belong to the Nubians, instead of giving it to the government of Kenya, give it to the Kenyan Nubians and say, donate a piece of your land and donate a group of youth and say, please watch over these artifacts. Believe me. First, the cultural heritage, the pride, the recognition.
I don't know if you heard the speech that I made before, but there's an article written by a Ghanaian, he's an author, and he's talking about how his own people can take care of the antiquities that are in their countries. That I can share the link. I can give the link to Dima, and then she posted. But that's on that same link. That article is basically talking about how its own people, not just the government, its own people aren't taking care of what's already in the country, which is the point I was making. So because we don't know, maybe it's not even that we don't want to take care of it. Maybe it's because we don't know how to take care of it, right? And so because we don't know how to take care of it, then we shouldn't have it right now. But when we learn to take care of it, then we can have it. If that makes sense.
It makes sense for...
I don't believe the fact of saying...
you know, the problem is brainwashing.
I actually don't believe...
I believe African solutions to African problems.
Lowani.
So, anyway, sorry, you were saying something.
Actually, the point Lowani is talking about, that maybe we don't know how to take good care of it. I don't believe that, because before they were taken, they were still in Africa and we were taking good care of it, which makes it like, I don't believe we don't know how to take good care of it. But then maybe if you say maybe like they think we don't know how to take good care of it, but us people, we maybe can take good care of it.
No, what I mean is that when I say we, I mean me, 19-year-old girl right now don't know how to take care of that antiquity, which is true. I've never seen it in my life. That's what I mean. Not the people that was there before, because these antiquities were taken from our countries a long time ago. So yes, we did know how to take care of it in the before, and we might know how to take care of it in the future. But the we that were there before they were taken, and the we that is there right now is totally different. That's why I'm saying we don't know how to take care of it.
Can I interject here before Mustafa comes in jumping? Because Majdi's getting excited saying Taharka's in the house. Majdi, let me tell you, Amani Renas just let it rip. And we're just going to build on what she said. Mustafa, when you say don't give these antiquities to the government, give them to the people, how are they going to enter the country? Because I assure you, the people are not in charge of the borders, it is the government. So for them to enter the government, enter the entity, the state, Kenya, for them to be given to the Nubians in Kenya, they have to go through the government of Kenya, which will then have to acknowledge that Kenyans have the right to these antiquities, which will be a challenge because the government doesn't even acknowledge the Nubians themselves in Kenya.
You see, for years, the World Bank and the rest of the international communities, they've been giving us conditional grants. These conditions are fixed, and you are supposed to adhere to them. It is the same concept that you can use and say, we return these artifacts, but our condition is it originated from the Nubians. Let the Nubians be the ones to handle, and an archaeologist can basically accompany the Nubian the artifacts back to where it belongs and train the people. The way you said, you're 19-year-old. but in Kiswahili we say samaki mkunje angali mdogo. You need to like basically you need to like fold the fish, the mud fish, when it's still young and it's still fresh, so that you can take the shape that you need it to take. For you to be able to know how to take care of these artifacts, you need to be trained when you're young. You don't need to be trained when you're 40. It is the same arguments that the government have, the system has been using on us, that you are the leaders of tomorrow, but the tomorrow never reaches. So we need to be trained the hard way, baptism by fire. Bring it back to us with a tie that it should be placed in a certain place. Give us a timeline. Tell us within 1 year, there's an artifact that we are going to bring back. Could your community develop land that it should be put? Is it possible for the youth to come and build a house that it will be put? Can we have a security mechanisms within the community that you prove to us that you'll be able to protect these artifacts? Can you give us a group of youth that will be trained by our archaeologists for them to take over this work? Then come and say, we're coming to do an assessment on whether you are ready to take it back or not. That one, you're giving it a proactive step by giving people a challenge. But this article by this Ghanaian, first I'll even ask, where did he study? You might find that he was either schooled in Europe or in the Americas, or if not, he was funded by the institutions. Basically, there's brainwashing that has happened somewhere. Believe you me, African solutions to African problems. There's about time that we have to take back this thing. Yeah? You see, like, for example, I like the way Turkey did. They say, we are taking back Hagia Sophia. We're going to open it to the public. They're the ones who own it, not the government to keep it. They're going to access it. They're going to pay for it. And for your information, it's going to even be free for you to access it. You see? So the argument is, if you give people the leadership, you train them on how to use it, how to protect it, they'll be able to grow into it. But if we say that you are 19, we'll have to wait for you to reach 40 so that you've been trained on how to be corrupt, and then we give you the powers to destroy the country. Please, let us, the youth are the people.
To be conditioned, but that's not what we're saying here. We are making the argument of currently, as we speak right now, as there are cases that are happening right now, because as you and I are speaking, as we are having this discussion, we already have briefs being written to request the repatriation. Now, they are requesting the repatriation of these antiquities with none of these ideas, none of these frameworks that you are discussing, not even engaging the people whose antiquities they are to be discussed. For example, you have the Sudanese and the Egyptians having these MOUs or discussing MOUs for the repatriation of their antiquities. The antiquities of which they speak are Nubian antiquities. Are the Nubians even involved in the discussion? Are the Nubian communities or the Nubian elders or the Nubian leadership involved in this discussions to bring them back? One, that's question number one. Two, aside from that, are the Nubians as a community even acknowledged as a heritage, something as basic as the intangible heritage of the language itself being allowed to be spoken, not being allowed? You want them to give you agency over something that might give you money as a community that will make you self-sustainable. These are things that we need to discuss as Africans. When you say African solutions for African problems, these solutions must be considering the current challenges that occur, including a government that will actively make sure her as a 17-year-old is completely disempowered to be able to take care and look after her heritage. When you have a minister of antiquities standing and saying, but you know, African governments don't care about culture and heritage, at the heart of the problem. Luan, you have something to say back. Wait, you're muted.
And when I say me as a 19-year-old, I do not mean that I'm waiting to turn a certain age to know about, taking care of antiquities. I meant in my 19 years of living, I haven't been trained to take care of these antiquities if they ever come back. If there's cases where they're telling, they're telling all of these Western countries to bring this back, well, I'm just waiting here to be trained to take care of these antiquities, because right now, if they're brought to me, I might not take good care of it because, I wasn't trained, which goes back to what you're saying, training all of these people. And again, that's it shows how we're not ready now. After we've been trained, then we'll be ready, which is my point from the start. My point is not that we shouldn't have these antiquities back, but we just aren't ready to have them right now. And maybe after the trainings that you were saying, after me knowing how to take care of the antiquities that are going to come back in my country, then we can have them.
But actually, what I can say about that is us not being trained, it's just because we don't have them here. Because why can you train someone to preserve something that person is not seeing at the right time? Because the only reason why I think we were not trained, we did not have them back at this time. But then maybe if they're able to come back, they're going to train us. And mind you, some people are not people who are there in the back then who know how to take good care of them. They are still there. So if we bring them back, they're going to train us, and then we'll also be able to cater for them. Yeah.
I mean, what I would say about that is, do we actually need those to get trained to at least know information about them? But do we just need the people that were training them and that were, taking care of them and the first to just, talk to us about it, because we don't have them here? So are we just going to wait for them to come back, or should we start training now if you guys want it right now?
I just believe one way to learn and get to know how to take good care of it is you having it by your side, taking good care of it. Just telling you some theoretical things, just like do this. It's not the right way to know how to take good care of it. But then when we have them by our sides in the museums, I believe we're going to know how to take good care of it. And we are going to be even having the courage to go and learn. Why should I waste my time going to learn something that I might not even have to take good care of, because I'm not sure if they are going to come back or not. But then if I'm sure they are here, I can see them, I'm going to be able to learn with it.
Actually,
we have a few questions here from the audience that I'd like to bring in. I just ask that we mute, because some of the feedback is that there is an echo. So if we're not speaking, let's mute. And here we have the question: how do we get ordinary Africans to value some of these objects? And some see them as a source of when some see them as a source of witchcraft or demonic forces.
I think that's the problem. I was reading a book, Writers in Politics, by Ngugi wa Thiong'o, and he was talking about how how literature has been used to write off African history. The way our cultures were painted as barbaric, they're painted as demonic, but those demonic artifacts are valued by the same people who look at it as demonic. So as he said, I really support, bring them back to us. Then we'll have enough interest to train on how to preserve it. Because basically, it's the same concept. The reason as to why Africa has been able to fight malaria for years is because we've been suffering from malaria for years. So we are able to, even our bodies have adapted to it. But basically, if you look at countries like Saudi, if today someone gets malaria, they'll even be admitted to ICU because they don't know how to handle it. The only way you can handle something is when it's exposed to you. Even during this COVID period, many specialists have been saying, take people outside there, let them be exposed to it. So by exposure is when you know how to handle something. If you don't get exposed, you can never know how to handle it. So basically, if we don't have the skills, bring those artifacts to us with a specialist for a period of 1 year to train people on the ground. And then after that, you can go back home and learn other skills, because you don't need those skills in the country anymore. We will be the one needing it. So it's very important for us to have the hardcore knowledge by being trained on the job. Now, the biggest problem that has been affecting youth for many years is that we are told to come with 5 years experience of something. It's the same problem that we're being given. You will never get the experience if you're not given exposure.
Danny, do you have something to say? Well, I mean, complete agreement. But Danny, do you have something to add to the question? We have Ian here.
Sorry, I did not get him right.
We have a question. Well, not a question. We have a comment here from Sheila.
It takes time. People in Tombos sometimes find objects and bring them to us for preservation. One time, someone found an offering table in village.
Take care of. Sometimes you'll find objects and take care of them in their house. Over time, they have built a culture to care for the object. And this goes more to your point, Mustafa and Dani as well, in that we're not trained to look after these antiquities and these artifacts because we don't have access to them, or they're not within our proximity. And what Sheila is saying here in Tombos, which is the area where she works and she excavates, the community that is interacting or is has access to these sites. When they do find these antiquities or these artifacts, they are learning or taking them to the experts to help show them how to look after them and preserve them. Then the question here becomes, and perhaps this is something we can organize for a follow-up debate, is how do we not wait for the government to be ready, and how do we empower ourselves as people, as agents of this heritage and culture, to make these demands on our own behalf? Because right now it is the governments making these demands, and if, as we said, the governments themselves are not ready because it is not their priority to preserve this heritage, because more often than not it will be the people whose heritage it is that have been marginalized. At least in the case of the Nubians in Sudan, Egypt, and in Kenya, you would be able to say, oh no, okay, any heritage that is coming from the Nubians now, it will go and it will ultimately yield whatever profit, whatever gains it will, to a government that continues to oppress the Nubians. So how do we balance that, and how do we take ownership of it as the people? Because you are right, if they are given to the community can look after it, sure. But how do we get to the stage where it is the community that is making these demands, and that it is the community that is at the decision-making table, and it is the community, it is people like who we have here on this panel, who will have done the research, who would have looked into what it takes for these steps to be taken all together, who will be reaching out to the scholars, to the archaeologists, and saying, okay, let's work together, let's collaborate in preserving this heritage, whether it's by creating training of trainers or creating these workshops for local communities. Any comment or feedback on that that you would care to share about?
I think we need to take back power to the people. The biggest failures of international organizations, they've made their relationship with governments, and most of the times the governments are failures. We have delegated that power to the government. It's about time we take it back. Institutions, local institutions and international institutions have to begin international partnerships to push these international bodies to now start talking with the local communities and organizations that are in trust from the communities, because the government's priorities have never been the same, because every 5 years we have a new political leader that comes with their own manifesto and it changes. But the community's priorities is usually constant. So the moment we take back that trust that we had given them, we'll be able to push for what we want as a community. Because for years we've been telling governments, push for this, but the next government comes and says, our priority is not culture, it's health. And then we go back to the drawing board looking for someone who will be our mouthpiece. So these organizations like Nubia Initiative should begin international movements and saying, we need audience with the UN, we need audience with the World Bank.
With all due respect, though, with all due, as valid as your point is, and because it is valid, and in its validity, I must drive home this point, the Nubia Initiative requesting an audience with the United Nations or with any of these multilateral institutions is acknowledging their legitimacy in their contribution to the facade that is the international corrupt system that is only empowering the misleaders and the governance that is currently plaguing Africa and eating at its heart. To ask for an audience with the I do go. The reason I am in the US right now is because I was meant to be speaking at the United Nations for the Commission for the Status of Women and for the Indigenous Peoples Forums, to be raising these issues. The truth is, every time they raise these issues, every time there is a space to have these meetings, this is not what they want to hear. Because if I go to the Indigenous Peoples Forum and I am there to speak and raise the awareness and raise the issue, raise the cause, raise the plight, raise the fight of the indigenous people of Nubia, for example, whether Egypt or Sudan who are there, if they feel that they want to stop what I'm going to say as a member state, all they need to do is intervene. And they can speak for as long as they want, and I don't have the right to stop them. That's what the United Nations is doing. So to go and acknowledge these institutions and ask for an audience with them is only further contributing to the facade that is the global system that is by design deliberately oppressing us as a people and wiping our voice. So what I'm saying is, if you are saying it is up to us, for the people, to look after these agents, we need to find another way where this space, this conversation is happening. Because, you know, I used to say, if you don't have a seat in the table, bring a folding chair. No, it doesn't matter, because the folding chair is no longer going to be good enough. The entire table needs to be flipped, and we need to take it back to the ground.
Yeah.
We have to wait now. Shayla saying, stay away from the World Bank. Yes, 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 yes. Stay away from any international multilateral institution that has contributed to the plaguing of our continent, that has contributed, continues to contribute to the theft, to the blatant bleeding of the richest continent in the world. We have the Honorable Dwayne Boyd here saying, in the case of Congo on its antiquities, the state of the African diaspora has the mandate to petition on behalf of Congo for their return to Congo. Congo has built a new museum which will receive them, nearing completion. Dwayne, how do we extend this to other African states, other African nations whose people are ready to take ownership of our antiquities coming back? Whether it is the Nubians in Kenya, in Sudan, in Egypt. I know there is the textiles initiative, textile conservation initiatives in Rwanda that is looking to engage the community in more hands-on conservation of genocide textiles. How can we access this kind of petitioning or this mandate that the state of the African diaspora is now using? For those of you who don't know, the Honorable Dwayne Wade is the Minister of Agriculture for the state of the African diaspora, which represents the 6th region of the African Union, essentially raising the causes of the diaspora or people of African ancestry around the world. We have Mejdi here. Very simple solution. One thing I learned growing up in Europe is that Westerners hate it when their wallets take a hit. Therefore, I propose to African countries to boycott Western countries until they surrender all our stuff back. Don't even send toothpicks to Europe. Is that laugh because of the unicorn version that was projected here? Because Mejdi, let me tell you, I don't know what African countries you think will be openly boycotting anything African. And I think if there were any African countries that would do that, we wouldn't be sat here having this discussion. Okay, thank you all to SOAD. And on this note, we have 2 more minutes. I yield to each of you to give a statement on this conversation. Yes, the Nubians in Uganda, everywhere else. Okay, Fam, we will yield to you for your closing remarks, and I thank you all for the points you raised, for the thought-provoking questions you have put forward, and we have Shayla here coming again. Saying,
10 million World Bank.
I mean, um, and this is one of the quotes that came through very, very strongly um, this reunion for Africa Week 2020, is that democracy as a system is not ready for the people. Like the concept of democracy that is perpetuated in the world today is not ready for the people. It's not made for the people. They can say it's by the people, for the people, but you know, people and people differ. The people who are sitting on tables in suits and air-conditioned spaces, holding certain ideas and certain colored passports that allow them to travel and not stand in queues and lines, are very different than the people who are standing in queues and lines to get some bread to feed their kids. Which is why Shayla says stay away from the World Bank, which is why I support that statement, which is why I agree with you. Yes, right now, if we are relying on the government, then we are not ready to get these antiquities back. But I equally agree with what Mustafa's saying, is that we as a people are ready, because we are a people, have been ready, because we have been, as Zaytoun said, the greatest guardians of history. We know what we made, we know what we are coming of. And those of us who don't know are beginning to know, because there is a revolution of consciousness that is washing across the continent and her diaspora. And this is why we say we are Africa Rising. This is why the pillars of Africa Week 2020 is research, rediscover, and reclaim. Because the more we research, the more we discover, and the more we are able to factually and unapologetically reclaim who we are as a people. Loan, give us your closing statement and say something to the family as you send them off, and hopefully come back for another debate here with the family.
Firstly, I'd like to thank everyone that was here to hear all of us. I'd like to thank Dima for having given us the opportunity to be here today. I'd like to thank Jean-Michel that, because we're here right here because of him participating in this debate. And I would just like to say that it was an honor to be here too. And this debate made me realize that some of my points weren't necessarily right. And, some things I had said made sense to some other people too. And at the end of the day, I think it's going to go about our willingness and efforts that we put to get all of these icons and antiquities back. So if we want them back, when we want them back, then we should go for it and claim them, because it belongs to us. It always will. And yeah, I'd like to end this to also tell people to follow us on IDebate Rwanda, because as even debates like this or any other debates, we do them monthly basis. And so yeah, we would love for you to see us even more and see meetings like this even more. So thank you so much for having us. I hope this is not the last time. And yeah.
Thank you so much. Please write the handles where people can find you for IDebate Rwanda, whether it's Facebook or Instagram. Dani, do you have something to share? Your closing remarks, a message to the family?
Yeah, so I thank you for receiving us. It's an honor to be in this conversation. Actually, I've also realized that we young people need to come up with such ideas, because we are the ones going to be maybe protecting such things in the future. So if we start now looking on how to do that, looking forward on claiming for what we have as Africans, it's going to be a good thing. So it was an honor inviting me for this, and I thank you for this opportunity. Yeah.
I thank you both for coming. I hope Ian will be able to join us shortly, at least for a quick statement. In the meantime, I do want to share that video that I was telling you about, just so you believe and see the madness that is that I was speaking of here. That people actually will go out of their way and argue
Okay.
the ridiculousness. Okay, are you seeing my screen?
It's yeah.
Yep.
Okay, here we go.
Thank you. It was an amazing civilization. It was not created by Black Africans. I'm sorry.
It wasn't. Who created it?
People who are white.
So man originated in Africa, which means that they were Africans. Then all of a sudden, when you talk about the amazing works of the Egyptians, they were people of color. I know that's a little rough for you to handle, but I know you want to hold on to that somehow thinking whites built the pyramids. But I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, we did.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. Because first of all, they were building things in Egypt while white Europeans were still in caves. That's a fact.
That is a
fact.
So, I mean, I don't know what more to say, but it is very important to know that we have people that are still actively trying to deny that we are capable of greatness, of this greatness. So if there is a reminder, a reason to drive home that we need to keep having this conversation and we need to find ways to reclaim what is ours, it is that. We have Meshdi saying, young brother, your future will be bright. And we already saw his admiration of Luan's arguments moving forward. Please follow IDebate Rwanda, support these youth, support their curiosity, support their confidence in being unapologetic in knowing where they stand in this society and knowing what they want and going up for it, claiming it without question, without hesitation, knowing it is their divine right and knowing that they are Africa Rising. Sandra, we have here saying, yes, the youth can understand, they can be problem solvers as much as identifiers. Keep identifying challenges, keep connecting the dots, and please, please, please know that you have a home here at Africa Week 2020. Whether you have a research or you have a debate that you would like to bring to us anytime, follow us, like, share this debate. We need more young people having this conversation because when it's time, you'll be the ones we're looking at to say, can we actually take care of this? Are we ready? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Follow. IDebate Rwanda. Follow these bright lights. Our future is bright, people. Take this with you. We'll be back for the closing ceremony. Peace and blessings. And this is Africa Rising.
Thank you.
Thank you.